It's another beautiful day here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm your host, Lee Ji-yoon. We have a lot on our plate this morning, so let's get started with a check on today's highlights. Seoul continues to weigh its options as the U.S.-led mega Trans-Pacific partnership gains more momentum in Washington. Outbound investment. The Korean government is looking to drive money overseas for profits while also introducing an individual savings account scheme by next year. These stories and more coming right up. But first, a look at today's top business stories. The deadline has passed and Greece fails to pull through. Reneging on a $1.7 billion repayment, Greece has become the first advanced economy to be in arrears on an IMF loan, joining the ranks of Sudan and Zimbabwe. It immediately cuts off Athens from any additional monetary support from Eurozone partners and the IMF. In the final hours, Greece had handed in a last-ditch proposal for a new two-year rescue deal. But German Chancellor Angela Merkel ruled out any new talks until Sunday's referendum, in which the Greek people will vote on whether or not to accept budget reforms demanded by European creditors. Many have said that a no vote would in effect mean a Greece exit from the Eurozone and possibly the European Union. A Korean official, for the first time ever, has been elected to head the International Maritime Organization. Im Gi-taek, who is currently president of Busan Port Authority, will take office as the next Secretary General of the UN Maritime Body after a final round of voting in London on Tuesday, beating out 5 other candidates. He will assume his 4-year post from January 1st. Im started attending IMO meetings as part of Korea's delegation from 1986, actively participating in maritime safety and environmental protection issues. Earlier this week, the Korean government announced its plans to encourage foreign investment to the tune of $15 billion every year to help offset the country's growing current account surplus. Now, this is just one of the ways that Seoul is trying to address the surplus liquidity that's going uninvested. Our Eunice Kim has more.
With interest rates at a record low, some $700 billion in cash is sitting untouched and not being poured into investments. The U.S. dollar is also piling up as the country has posted a current account surplus for more than 3 years, coming in at $89 billion last year, strengthening the won, but in effect making Korean products less competitive.
We're predicting another current account surplus exceeding $90 billion this year. Naturally, this will increase supply of the US dollar and step up pressure on the Korean won. To make adjustments, there's an effort to promote overseas investment.
To get the cash to flow, the Finance Ministry will not collect taxes on earnings from overseas stocks and profits gained from foreign exchange fluctuations. The government hopes it will spur direct outbound investment by Koreans to the tune of $15 billion every year. It's also working on introducing an individual savings account scheme. Rolled out in Britain in 1999 and a similar version in Japan in January of last year, the so-called all-inclusive account enables holders to enjoy limited tax exemptions on investments while being able to manage a portfolio of financial products.
Due to the current climate of low growth and low interest rates, it's difficult to grow your money through deposits. This account will be helpful for young people as it also offers the option of withdrawing funds in the short term.
But as the addition will require a revision to tax codes, the introduction of ISA accounts is not expected until sometime next year. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
So as we just heard, efforts continue to encourage investment in and outside of the country. However, financial authorities also warn that people need to be extra cautious when investing, as the number of scams from illicit firms looking to turn quick profits is on the rise. With more, here's our Lee Ju-yang.
This is a bird's-eye view of a woodland burial site in an advertisement clip. The company is promoting its well-balanced and lush environment, highlighted by abundant trees and ponds. But in reality, investors were left with this, a scam.
I took out card loans and scrapped together about $45,000 because I wanted a more comfortable life after retirement. But now I'm stuck in a bottomless pit. I really feel like dying now.
Like this man identified only by his surname Kim, unauthorized firms have targeted people in older age brackets looking to take advantage of their pension money. The Financial Supervisory Service says fraud cases have been on the rise, with swindlers stealing money under the nose from investors desiring higher profits. While the number of fraud cases from illicit firms was below 100 in 2011 and 2012, the figure jumped from 2013, and about 140 similar fraud incidents were reported from 2014 until March of this year, mostly regarding real estate-related businesses, followed by investments in unlisted stocks or overseas funds. Police say it's important to remain vigilant against investment opportunities that promise quick returns.
If they promise high profits, comb through the details and check if the firm is listed with financial bodies.
Officials add victims should reach out for help from financial authorities and consult with others before making any major investments. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
The U.S.-led regional free trade deal known as the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, is moving closer towards completion. And Korea's interest in joining the TPP seems to be growing as President Barack Obama was recently given the green light to fast-track his trade agenda. And to tell us more about what the TPP can offer to Korea and what it lacks, our Kwon So-ah joins us this morning. So good to see you, So-ah.
Good morning to you.
All right, so let's start with the latest developments on this TPP. Where does this trade deal exactly stand as of now?
Okay, here's the latest. The TPA and TAA were passed in order for the TPP to advance. That's a lot of T's and P's and A's. But the TPA stands for Trade Promotion Authority and TAA stands for Trade Adjustment Assistance. Now, simply what this means is that President Barack Obama's ambitious TPP trade deal, will only face a yes or no vote in Congress without being subject to amendment.
All right, so less restrictions, meaning that negotiations could come to a conclusion soon.
Exactly, and that's why sooner or later Korea will have to say its stance on whether to join the deal by evaluating the benefits and also the burden and also what kind of price the TPP trade would come with. So let's get a rundown of what some of the main arguments are.
This is so much fun, we should do it again. That's what U.S. President Barack Obama said Monday while signing a crucial bill that will give him the authority to fast-track a number of trade deals, including the TPP. The question here in Seoul is whether the pact will also be fun for Korea, a country that has only expressed its will to join.
I believe it is essential for the Korean economy to be integrated into the globalized economies. Joining this networking will be very important for the Korean manufacturing sector, our textile industry sector, or some chemical sector.
If launched, the TPP will cover 40% of the world economy. Its current 12 members include Japan, which plays a leading role with the US, Canada, Australia, and Singapore. Korea already has separate trade deals with 10 of the members. Some say that's one reason why Korea should participate. Others say that's why it's unnecessary, saying the TPP arrangement for Korea would cover items that are similar to those in the Korea-US FTA. And this has raised worries within the country's often vocal agriculture sector.
There will be additional demands regarding the elimination of tariffs for the rice market, and also easing or lifting of beef and GMO products.
And economic diplomacy is another concern.
The TPP has been characterized as an economic alliance for the U.S. to contain China. But because Korea's top trade partner is China and not the U.S., Korea should re-examine the question of joining the TPP from square one.
This especially so as another trade pact, the 16-member Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, is waiting to be sealed this year too. And that one includes China.
The TPP negotiation probably instigate the major mega FTA competitions. So if we consider that aspect, probably TPP will make a huge change to the world economy.
There is not much time left for Korea to decide. The original TPP members are expected to hold a ministerial meeting at the end of July to finalize negotiations. And President Obama is aiming to see the deal ratified during his time in office.
All right, so we heard the goods and the bads from this, and the Korean government said before that it wants to be part of it. But then why is this decision dragging on?
Well, Jiyoon, the government has been very closely monitoring how negotiations are progressing, that is, and of course with the U.S. and China in mind. But it's actually not only the economic benefits that they're keeping in mind, but really who is part of what. And especially as Korea has joined the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB, which the TPP leaders, the U.S. and Japan, are not part of. So it makes it very tricky for Korea to really weigh the options and decide on what kind of commitments it should make.
Well, but then you just mentioned that Japan is U.S. biggest TPP partner. But then when it comes to sensitive issues like opening up the rice market, doesn't Japan have similar concerns like Korea?
It does, of course, but experts are saying that Japan is actually very likely to meet the requirements the TPP is asking for. And Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs Daniel Russell once said that, quote, if Japan can do it, Korea can do it as well. But as Korea is not one of the original 12 members, it looks like Korea won't be having that much say in the further negotiations.
All right, so this is different from the bilateral free trade deals that Korea signed with other countries.
Right.
I guess we have to keep an eye on how this will all pan out from here on out. Thank you so much for coming in today, Soa.
Thank you for having me.
That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for staying with us throughout the program. We'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, bye-bye.